Some of y'all need to just stick to giving me about not wearing glasses and rubber gloves. Hey, this is David with Hagerty and our Redline rebuild updates. Today I'm going to work on putting fresh stuff in our stator for our CT70. But before we get to that, I got to clear up some mud. So let's come on over here to the mud bench. And we've been going through the comments and questions and all those good things relative to our quick change rear end. So there's a couple items I'd like to address that have come out, and we'll go from there. So first, I found one comment extremely useful, and it kind of like, wow, you know what? That's right. So on the pinion bearing, the furthest one forward, when I bought the bearings, I bought the exact same part number. The new bearings come shielded. I didn't take the shields off. Guess what? Here's the shields. So the reason being is they are packed with grease, as you can see from the factory. They will have a limited amount of grease. These are dust shields, so they're not 100% shielded, but so some of the oil will come in. Most likely it'll starve it for oil over a few 100,000 miles. So we took them out just in case. All right, now let's talk about bearing installation, or the race for that matter. So we had some good discussion on the internet as far as how it can be done. Most of the time people are knocking them in with a hammer and a punch, or putting them in the press and pressing them in. And you can also heat and cool them. So Scott E. actually had a fantastic point, and he said, so for every thousandths that you want to change a part, you need about 100 degrees change. So if you're going to swell something up, you would go, say 3 thousandths is a typical press fit, you need about 300 degrees change to get there. Very easy, throw it in the toaster oven, make that change in temperature. Now to cool it is a little bit more involved in that, because most people have just a freezer laying around, right? So you throw the part in there, you don't get that high. You might get down to 40 degrees, so you're maybe 70, you're barely moving it. Using dry ice, using liquid nitrogen, all those things are certainly ways you can get there and work. Next, there was a question relative to tempering the bearings, and if I ruined the bearings because I heated them up. No, flat out no. So tempering process typically starts at about 350 degrees and has to be in there for 2 hours. So I did not have them in there that long, maybe 300 degrees. In fact, I'm going to say it was 300 degrees because the bearings turned bronze, and what that is a witness of is I didn't take the oil off them from them manufacturing them, and oil starts to break down at about 275 degrees, hence the color change. Lastly, I love all the comments, folks. It's fantastic. It shows that you care about what you're doing and what I'm doing, and at the end of the day, we all have to have some humor, and maybe it's time to kick back and not go in the shop. But for today, I get it back over to this stator. For tearing this apart, I'm going to use my soldering iron and whatever screwdriver I decide, because these screws take either one. It looks to be fairly straightforward. We got one spot that's soldered on, everything else just bolts on. It doesn't appear to be anything like alignment, and everything's going to kind of find itself, with the exception, of course, for the points. We'll have to set that once it's on the bike. So with that, get ripping. All right, well, since that's nicely assembled still, I'm just going to leave it as a reference point, and that way I'll know exactly where my lines go, where everything buttons up to. Just a nice photo. Okay. Really need this in there first. There's cooking it. Yeah, why not? Oh my God, you didn't cool it. Well, yeah. I got a tattoo. Today's rockauto.com tip of the day is relative to wire routing. Now that is very important because if you don't route your wires correctly, you will have a problem with either another part pinching them or abrasion while the part is functioning. Now that applies to this stator as much as it applies to your automobile or your truck.
Ding, 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 ding.
That worked?
That's the one.
Good.
Just needed a water break.
I did. I needed to step away.
Figuring out where they go and then start talking.
All right, so today's tip of the day is
RockAuto.com.
Today's Rock Auto tip of the day. I hate that. What?
Today's RockAuto.com tip of the day is Ben's going to tell you what it is.
Ben's going to read this off a script. Or pinched when you do the final installation.
No, that's good. Just start there again. Point it and say, break it up for me.
Okay,
A little bit.
Yeah.
Like,
Today's rockauto.com tip of the day is it relative.
you need to walk away for a sec?
Nah.
Fiddle.
I need a cup of coffee.
Fiddle. I wonder what happened.
I wonder what happened to that cup of coffee.
Now, back to our program.
What, you remember what this switch was for?
Yeah, it's
And then this little wiper. A little grease on it. There we go. I forgot to adjust it when I get it in the assembly. I'm just going to adjust it. At least it's there and I don't forget about it. I have my stator all put back together. And the last thing I need to route in here is this neutral safety, or like a neutral, not a safety really, but a neutral switch. Normally, or at least in ours, it came within the sleeve and I already pulled back the shrink tube that was on here. But I need to route it up through here, up through the grommet, so that's done. But now I could go through and I can cut this all off and do all that to get it up into this connector and have it protected by this shrink wrap. But what I'm gonna end up doing here is I'm just gonna take and put it into the connector. I think. Okay, oops. Gotta get that pushed back. There's a little ear on here that clips in. There, it's snapped in. Okay, so now that's back in position. Now to make this look decent, what I'm going to do is take some of this wire wrap, and it won't be exactly stock, but it won't fray the wires either. So, should be about like that. What would be a wiring job without flame? I have the fancy tool for it, but by the time I got that out, I'd be done. Just one job. There we go. All right, so added a little bit of wire loom on the outside of this. It's a nice little kind of a trap type of thing, and slotted so I can put it on after the connections are made in this case. And but here's our full assembly, all done and fresh. Like I said, before I go to put this in the, or once it's in the bike, I should say, I can go through and set my point gap and get everything set up, of course, with the flywheel on, and we'll be good to go. Now, like I said earlier, I think maybe it's time for some folks to go get a glass of water or some iced tea, lemonade, go hang out on the porch, Go take a ride in your car. Don't go in the shop today. See ya.